I still remember one moment really clearly. I was out with a group of people, and someone said, I just knew he was the one. Everyone was nodding and smiling, and I just sat there thinking, well, how do you know? Because I didn't. Everything with my partner was great. Like we were super close, super happy, and very, very much in love. But I couldn't make those bold, I just knew statements for some reason. And that made me spiral. I started ruminating, comparing, Googling things like, what does true love look like? How do you know if someone is the one? Or what does it mean if you're not 100% sure? I would try to get reassurance from friends, analyze every thought, every feeling, trying to find proof that my relationship was right, even though I loved it deeply. But the harder I searched, the worse it got. And that's when I came across the book Relationship OCD by Sheva Rajahi. Thanks to that book and finally understanding what was actually happening, those nagging doubts stopped feeling like proof that something was wrong with my relationship and started feeling like symptoms of anxiety. That realization changed everything for me. So before we go on, just take a second and check in with yourself. Are you in a loving, caring relationship where you're treated with respect and kindness? Do you have a partner who tries to understand you, who's willing to repair when things go wrong? Do you generally have shared interests and a shared vision for the future? And still, do your doubts feel confusing or out of proportion, like they don't really match how good things are? If that sounds familiar, then this video might be for you. Because what you might be experiencing isn't about choosing the wrong person. It's about what happens when an anxious mind meets love. So in this video, I want to share what I learned from that book and from my own experience. Because if you've ever felt trapped in your thoughts, even while loving someone deeply, you're definitely not alone. Before we dive into the mechanics, I want you to hear what this inner spiral can sound like. I saw this video on TikTok the other day and it captures relationship OCD so well.
You should feel more happy right now. Why aren't you more happy right now? Why aren't you more in love right now? Like, why don't you have butterflies and sparks? Like, clearly you're not in love. So, on top of that, you've been lying to them this whole time because you don't feel this 24/7. What a terrible partner you are. They're gonna leave you in a few years, by the way. Oh, actually, you're probably gonna leave them. What's worse, but you're both gonna hurt each other, so what is the point of any of this? How dare you find someone else attractive? What does that mean? You should spend some more time thinking about what that means, because clearly it means something. Remember when you didn't want them to hold your hand because you were overstimulated? What does that mean? Clearly, it means that you were never in love with them and you faked it this whole time. You don't relate to those posts that say you found the one, you found the soulmate, so clearly you're not with the right person. Like, what have you been doing? The fact that you even have these thoughts and doubts means something. You should listen to this because it means something. You should take a few minutes to see if you're even in love. Like, test out your feelings. Like, what does it feel like when you talk to them? Like, do you really want to talk to them or no? You've been lying to yourself this whole time, and you've been lying to them. They deserve better. They deserve better. They deserve someone who 100% loves them and who never has doubts.
Sounds intense, right? That's exactly what anxiety can feel like. So let's break it down. Now, before we dive into what relationship OCD or anxiety really is, let's look at anxiety first. Anxiety is often described as a heightened intolerance of uncertainty. That means your brain perceives not knowing as dangerous and it tries to protect you by overthinking, overplanning, and overanalyzing. So basically, doing anything to reduce the anxiety and regain a sense of control. Relationship OCD or relationship anxiety is basically anxiety's relationship form. The book actually uses both terms kind of interchangeably. You can imagine it as being on a spectrum, with relationship anxiety on the milder side and relationship OCD on the more intense side. But at the core, both are really just anxiety taking its relationship form. It's that same intolerance of uncertainty, just now showing up around love, commitment, and your partner. It involves obsessions and compulsions that revolve around the question, how do I know if I'm truly in the right relationship? And that question often shows up in the form of a constant nagging doubt that feels impossible to switch off. Some people find themselves fixating on their partner's looks, ambition, or social energy. Others keep comparing their relationship to others, wondering if it feels intense enough, exciting enough, or right enough. And no matter how much you try to reason with yourself, the thoughts don't stop. They come back in new forms, and each one feels like it must mean something. So let's talk about how anxiety actually works, because once you understand the loop behind it, everything starts to make more sense. Imagine it like this: anxiety is basically a cycle that keeps feeding itself. It starts with a thought, then creates a feeling, then you do something to make that feeling go away. But the thing you do to feel better actually ends up teaching your brain that the thought was dangerous, and that's how the loop stays alive. Let me explain. The first thing that happens is an intrusive thought. It can be something like, what if I'm not really in love? Or what if this isn't the right person? Sometimes it feels like it comes out of nowhere. Other times it is triggered by a moment of disconnection, tension, or just a feeling that doesn't match how you think love should feel. And sometimes it even happens in really good moments when you feel super close and connected, and your brain goes, is this too good to be true? What if I lose this? And then, after the intrusive thought, the anxiety kicks in. And after that comes the part that keeps most of us stuck, the compulsion. That's the thing you do to try to make the anxiety go away and to feel better. Maybe you start ruminating, analyzing your feelings, replaying moments in your head, asking your friends for reassurance, comparing your relationship, or Googling, how do you know he's the one? All of this to solve the question, is my partner really the right one for me? Do I love them enough? So you keep looking for proof in your thoughts, in your feelings, even in tiny moments of behavior. Maybe you catch yourself checking how attracted you feel that day or measuring whether your love feels strong enough. Anything that might confirm the rightness of your relationship. Here's what's actually happening behind the scenes. When you have relationship anxiety, your brain is basically sending a false alarm. It's misinterpreting uncertainty as danger. So even though there's no real threat, your body reacts as if there is. That's why these thoughts feel so intense and urgent. Your brain genuinely believes it's protecting you. The goal is always the same: to get certainty, to feel okay again, to make the discomfort stop. And for a short moment, it works and it provides temporary relief. You feel calmer and safer. But here's the thing: that moment of relief is actually the problem. Think of it like scratching an itch. The moment you scratch, it feels amazing, instant relief. But a few minutes later, the itch comes back even worse. Why? Because every time you scratch, you irritate the skin, you teach your body this spot must really be a problem. Keep paying attention to it. That's exactly what happens with anxiety, because every time you do something to make it go away, you're teaching your brain, okay, that thought really was dangerous. I needed to fix it to feel safe. That's like what's called negative reinforcement. Your brain accidentally learns that anxiety equals danger and reassurance equals safety. So the next time a similar thought shows up, your brain panics even faster and louder, thinking it's protecting you, and that's how the anxiety loop strengthens itself. Intrusive thought leads to anxiety, what leads to a compulsion, what leads to temporary relief, which leads to a stronger anxiety. So the more you react to these thoughts, the more your brain learns, I can't handle uncertainty. That's why reassurance or overthinking never actually works, because it gives you short term comfort but long term pain. It's like scratching the itch. It helps for a second but makes it worse long term. So here's the thing: those intrusive thoughts, they're not proof of how you truly feel. They're just mental noise, a sign that your brain is anxious, not that your relationship is wrong. Everyone has weird random thoughts in relationships. Everyone sometimes wonders, am I really in love? Are we compatible? What if I could be happier with someone else? Do we have enough chemistry and attraction? The difference is that for people with relationship anxiety, those thoughts feel stickier. They feel more urgent and more dangerous. Like if you don't figure them out, something terrible might happen. For most people, wondering if they're in the right relationship is just a passing thought. But in an anxious mind, that same thought turns into a puzzle that needs solving. It's like an endless search for certainty that never quite arrives. Before I share what helped me, I just want to say and make it clear I'm not a therapist or an expert, and this part isn't meant to replace any type of therapy or professional guidance. Relationship anxiety is complex and can look different for everyone. What I'm sharing here are just the insights and reframes that help me, and maybe they can be a starting point for you too. Before anything else, one of the first things that helped me was simply understanding what was really happening. When I learned about relationship anxiety or relationship OCD, it took the mystery and power away from the thoughts. They stopped feeling like proof that something was wrong and instead became what they actually are, symptoms of anxiety. That alone was the first weight lifted, just having psychological clarity. From there, I started learning how to think differently. As we learned earlier, when you're struggling with relationship anxiety, your brain basically learns to confuse uncertainty with danger. It hates the feeling of not knowing because not knowing feels unsafe. So it tries to protect you by predicting what could go wrong, by jumping straight to worst case scenarios. These mental traps are called cognitive distortions, basically stories your brain tells you to create a sense of control. For example, you wake up one morning and just don't feel butterflies, and your brain goes, if I feel this way, it must mean something's wrong. Or you have a small disagreement and suddenly think, maybe I don't really love them enough. But these aren't truths. They are just your anxious brain doing what it's used to, scanning for danger and trying to fix uncertainty. So the goal isn't to make the thoughts go away or to prove your brain wrong. It's to respond differently when they come. It's about being able to say, I don't know, and that's okay. I can still live my life. That's how you start building the muscle of tolerating uncertainty, which over time actually lowers anxiety. And that's the real shift. Because every time you resist the urge to overthink, to analyze, to ask for reassurance, you're actually teaching your brain something new, that not knowing doesn't equal danger. And I'm not gonna lie, this part is hard. It goes against everything your anxiety wants you to do because your brain is screaming, fix this now. And you're like, nope, we're just gonna sit here and not fix it. It's uncomfortable, but that's exactly how healing works. Every time you resist the urge to overanalyze or seek reassurance, you're literally rewiring your brain. It's neuroplasticity in action. Over time, these thoughts lose their power. They might still show up, but they don't control you anymore. And that's where the peace comes from. You stop trying to get rid of the anxiety and instead learn to coexist with it. When I first read this part, I actually felt kind of disappointed because I had always imagined that anxiety was something you could like heal and be done with. Like one day I'd finally be calm forever and that would mean I was like cured. So reading that it doesn't really disappear, that it just becomes something you learn to live with felt really unfair at first. I remember thinking, so wait, it never goes away. I'll always have to deal with this. That sucks. So I had to accept that healing looks different than I thought. It's not about becoming someone who never feels anxious again. And actually, in the book, the author shares a metaphor that I really liked. She says, imagine you live in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with an annoying roommate, the kind who leaves dirty dishes, talks too much, and follows you everywhere. You can't escape them. They're just there in your space all the time. Now imagine you move into a much bigger house. The roommate is still there, but now you have more air, more light. You don't notice them as much. The thing is, your annoying roommate is here to stay, and you can't kick anxiety out of the brain, but you can expand your tolerance and acceptance of it. So, learning to live with anxiety was one part of the work, but the other part was understanding where all these impossible standards of love even came from in the first place. Because when I looked closer, I realized that so much of my anxiety wasn't just about my partner. It was about the story I'd been told about what love should feel like. And that brings me to one of the biggest shifts for me, and honestly, one of the hardest ones too. It's a topic I've dedicated an entire video to romanticism. I'll link it below. Or more specifically, it's letting go of the idea that there's this one perfect person out there, that when they show up, everything will just click. You'll never doubt, you'll never argue, you'll just know. We have all been told or raised with the idea that if it's true love, it should feel easy, and if it doesn't, something must be wrong. But that's just not how real life or relationships work. As the author so amazingly puts, the actual process of loving another person takes willingness, patience, and plenty of hard work. Good relationships are hard to find and even harder to maintain. They are not for the weak of heart, and they certainly don't just happen to us. The truth for most of us is that the myth of perfect love and the need to achieve it are counterproductive to relational health and satisfaction. Holding our relationships to such standards typically makes us less satisfied in love, not more. The truth is, most of us didn't come up with these expectations ourselves. We absorbed them from movies, from stories, from the way people talk about love. We were taught that real love is instant, effortless, and all consuming, that if you have doubts, something must be wrong, that if it takes work, it isn't meant to be. No wonder our brains panic the second things feel uncertain, because by those standards, even healthy love can start to feel like failure. But that's not how real love works. Real love has ordinary days, awkward moments, misunderstandings, and repair. It's not a constant high, it's a living thing that changes, sometimes quietly. Another thing that helped me is the section in the book about living by your relationship values instead of your anxiety. Remember the times before you were in a relationship and you imagined the kind of partner you thought you'd be: warm, loving, patient, spontaneous, engaged? But when you struggle with relationship anxiety, it's like your brain hijacks that version of you. You catch yourself being distant, irritable, or just stuck in your head, not because you don't care, but because your mind is busy trying to keep you safe. And that's what's so heartbreaking about it. Anxiety always disguises itself as protection. It convinces you you're preserving something, your safety, your relationship, your control. But the irony is that each time you act on your anxiety, each time you avoid, withdraw, ruminate, overthink, you're actually moving further away from the kind of relationship you want to have. Because in trying to protect the relationship, anxiety actually pulls you away from it. It makes you less present, less open, less you. The problem is that our doubts and defenses, which want to help us understand love, actually stop us from living it. The author suggests to, instead of asking yourself, are my thoughts true? Ask yourself, are my thoughts helping me live in line with my values? And when I read that, it really changed something for me, because now when I feel that wave of anxiety or catch myself spiraling, I try to pause and ask, am I being the kind of partner I actually want to be right now? Most of the time, the answer is no. My thoughts aren't helping me live in line with my values. They're pulling me away from them. And that doesn't just hurt me, it also keeps me from contributing to the relationship the way I want to, with love, attention, and care. And that little pause, that moment of self reminder, helps me come back to presence, to connection, to who I actually want to be in love. So, after everything, you might still be wondering, okay, but what if my doubts are true? What if I'm making a mistake? Well, the truth is, you'll never know for sure. None of us do. And that's where peace actually starts. Not when you find certainty, but when you stop needing it. It takes time and courage to realize that no matter what happens in your relationship, whether you stay together forever or separate one day, you are capable of coping with the outcome. The greatest risk isn't committing to the wrong person, it's losing your life to the endless search for certainty and perfection. Because certainty doesn't exist. No book, no expert, no therapist can tell you with absolute confidence that you've chosen the right one. What does matter is whether you're in a fundamentally healthy relationship, one built with respect, appreciation, support, love, and a shared vision for the future. If you have that, well, then maybe you don't need the answer to that question. Healing from relationship anxiety is really about learning to stop searching, stop checking, and start enjoying your relationship. So many of us have this idea in our heads that happiness means feeling amazing all the time, being 100% sure, 100% in love, 100% connected. And when we don't feel that, we panic, expecting that level of perfection is actually what's making us so miserable. And just to be really clear here, because this is very important, none of this means accepting like a toxic relationship or pretending things are fine when they're not. This is about people who are in healthy, loving relationships, but whose minds keep saying something's wrong when really it's just anxiety doing what anxiety does. Okay, wow, that was a lot, but I really hope this video gave you some comfort or perspective if you've been going through something similar. I know this topic can be really personal and complicated. Even after years of working on myself, I still find new layers when I come back to it. That's also why I love this book so much. Every time I reread it, it gives me something a little different. If anything in this video made you pause or feel seen, I can't recommend Relationship OCD enough. It's linked below, and honestly, it's one of those reads that stays with you. And if you want, you can share your thoughts below in the comments, maybe about your own experience of learning to live with uncertainty or what this topic brought up for you. Thank you very much for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!